Murder? Mayhem? Mormons? Why not? You know me and my favorite subject, but let's make it a little dicier. Literally. I found another Exmo, and we are together collaborating to make Bloody Tales just for you. Blood Atonement, a new series from Unfiltered Rise and Hellfire Agency, where we take you down that murderous path. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll see you there. Everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Rise. And today I have with me Zachary King. Zachary's story is a pretty amazing one, and he came out on the other side, which is why I'm interested in his story and so happy to interview him today. Zachary, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. I love your story. I love the fact that you were able to come out and find God. It is rare to have someone with your knowledge and you're able to tell people some of these things. And I thought, what a better guest to have on, because I was just speaking to you a little bit about the youth. And I think it's extremely important that parents understand exactly how your story began, because the game you began that with, my daughter played a couple months ago. That game is still up and going. She was 8 when this happened. So Zachary, will you tell us, about I'll let you introduce that whole situation.
I spoke in New Zealand in 2016, and I was at a Catholic university, and the teachers there said, don't mention anything about the Bloody Mary game because our kids don't know it and you'll confuse them. And I said, your kids know a lot more than you think they do. And it's not me that gives the talk, it's the Holy Spirit. So let's see what the Holy Spirit wants to do. And if you don't want me to say that part, pray to the Holy Spirit and ask him that I not say it. And so I started my talk and I got to the Bloody Mary game. And I said, how many kids here have heard of the Bloody Mary game? And every hand went up. And on the side of the room was all the professors. And there was a gasp from there. You know, like somebody went, oh. And I said, and how many people have played it? And every hand went up. And I said, okay, so you're all like 18 to 24. How old were you when you started playing it? And you got things like 7, 8, 9, 10. The oldest person was 11 years old.
Yep. Yeah. It's so young. Yeah.
Where did you learn the game? Church bathroom or Catholic school bathroom?
Wow. Wow, that one is actually, and my daughter doesn't even go to mainstream school. She is in a private co-op homeschool, and it is ran by very LDS people. I'm here in Utah. I live in Utah. There's like no getting away from it. I don't know what to do. But it's better than public school. We are, in the midst of looking for other things, but she still learned it. And those kids are supposed to be like the goody, just like I'm sure the Catholic school kids, and it's something that I think is viewed as harmless. When I was young, it wasn't Bloody Mary. I'll be 48 this year, just to give you kind of an idea where I'm at. And it was light as a feather, stiff as a board. That game. Yeah. And I think it's kind of a similar thing, because I remember being really terrified afterward, and you're conjuring and traveling your own death. And that is just absolutely creepy with the knowledge that I have now, but I was a kid. What do you do? And it leads you into all kinds of things, like you well know. I mean, I think my grandpa used to say, if you go to a school and you're new and the first person that comes up to you, maybe don't be that person's friend first, because they might not have your best interests, right? He was kind of a thug. He was kind of a little bit of a hood back in the day. They used to call it a hood, like Grease, right, but like real, and going to jail a lot. And they were bikers and gangsters. And then I had this grandma that was really Mormon. I don't even know how they ended up together, but that's what happened. And so I saw both sides of the coin. But I think with you, like what you said after, you kind of got into it, you found an OTO chapter, right? Was it
Right.
OTO first? And how did that kind of pull you in?
Well, we're skipping a bunch of steps. We should
Oh,
probably go back to
oh,
the
yeah,
beginning
let's do it.
and let the people see how I innocently got involved.
Oh, that's
Uh,
true. I know the story. Yes, we should share with the listeners.
if, as I was telling her before the show started, if you drop the information that you should be sharing with your child, Satan is waiting for you to drop that information, so that when you don't give it, he's right there. Satan will play games with your children that you haven't warned them against. Charlie Challenge went through the schools a few years ago, and it's just above. It's like playing with a Ouija board that you make at home.
Oh,
It
wow.
was so prolific the year it came out that Good Morning America featured it on their show and told parents that they should play it with their kids so
Oh my
that they
gosh.
could so that they could find out what the questions are the kids are trying to figure out, and the parents could have a dialogue with them. Now, in the Catholic Church, we have two versions of sins. You have venial sins, which would be like your parents telling you, well, let me see, there being a sign that says no spitting on the sidewalk and you do anyway. Or speeding. You're not supposed to speed, but you speed anyway. Well, that'd be like a venial sin. Then we have mortal sins. Mortal sins are things that keep you from heaven. So these will send you to hell. So playing with demons will send you to hell. A violation of the first commandment, thou shalt have no gods before me, will send you to hell. Not obeying your parents, thou shalt honor your father and mother, that will send you to hell. And if you like if you don't know how to approach your child and talk about a certain subject, Satan knows how.
Mm-hmm.
Satan will introduce them, and it may seem innocent and fun at first, and he gets you to sin in little increments until eventually you're full blown sinning with the best of them. And he got you here in little baby steps, little incremental sins along the way.
Right.
Did you see the
Yes.
movie last year, Nefarious?
You know what? I am going to have to watch that movie because I have been told by about 5 people to watch it and I haven't seen it yet. And so I am definitely going to have to watch it.
You can get it on YouTube, I think, for $20, and or you can buy it probably for the same price.
Right.
And well, part of the time you're talking to the prisoner, and part of the time a demon is talking,
Oh, wow.
and he tells you the movie is almost 100% exact to the way demons are.
Hmm.
The only incorrect thing that is said is that the demon says he can only be in one place at a time, which isn't accurate. Demons can bilocate. They can be in 2 exorcisms at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And they're not traveling back and forth that fast. They're literally in both exorcisms at the same time.
Wow.
But other than
I
that,
hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
all the other information in that movie is correct. And they explain how they get you to the point of possession, but the first steps you took to get there, and how that it's a series of small yeses that get you to the big yes. And each step you make gets you 1 inch closer to your goal, even though you may not know that's the goal.
Wow. And
And
they start this young, right? I mean,
yes,
let them know how old you were when you started up into things.
I was 10 years old, and I had seen every creepy movie that existed up until that point and thought that levitation was the coolest thing in the world. And if I could levitate on my way to school, that'd be Superman levitates. He flies. That's levitation. And I wanted levitation to be real. Now, on the first day of school, things you told us, not to do on your first day of school. On my first day of school, this was in the 5th grade. This kid came up to me and he said, "Meet me in the bathroom at the first break." Well, the first break is at 10:20. And, there's no internet back then. There's nothing to tell you, don't do this. If somebody comes up to you and says, meet me in the bathroom, you probably shouldn't do that. So my dad never gave me a warning like that. So first break, I'm in the bathroom. There's 49 other children in there, boys and girls in the same bathroom. And they tell us we're going to turn out the light, chant a certain phrase, a certain number of times. And if you do it right, the spirit of a burn victim will show up in the mirror. And I'm thinking, that's probably not going to work. I mean, it doesn't sound cool. It doesn't sound like something that you can really do. I've never heard of this before. And it was called the Bloody Mary game. And I was like, okay, I'm game. Let's try it. So they turn out the lights. Now, first off, we're 10 years old. Some of us are still scared of the dark. And now you're in a darkened bathroom, so you're a little on edge now. And we chant the phrase a certain number of times. And sure enough, spirit of a burn victim shows up in the mirror. And 49 kids ran screaming out of the bathroom. And in my talk, I say, one idiot, I can call him an idiot because it was me, stayed in the bathroom staring at this thinking, I did this. I chanted this phrase 11 times and I made this happen. Wow. I have this much power. Now, remember at 10 years old, you're not always the sharpest tack. So when you're looking in the mirror, you're not looking at the room behind the mirror. And you're not looking at some far off distant land that this mirror can somehow tap into. If you're seeing the demon in the mirror, he's standing next to you. You're seeing his reflection in the mirror.
Oh.
Now,
I had a question about the mirror thing because I don't know. I know you don't probably know this about Mormons, but when they get married, they kneel over an altar and they face forever mirrors that go on forever because there's 2 mirrors facing each other and it creates like a forever pattern, which I know is occult in nature now that I'm out.
yeah,
And you
there's an occult
stare
game
into that.
called 3 Kings. And 3 Kings is created with mirrors.
And when they face each other like that, is it similar?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I wondered about that my whole life afterward because you're supposed to feel really good when you go through, like you're supposed to be getting these temple rights that make you feel like, oh, I'm going to heaven now, yay. And you're getting married in your green Masonic apron with your white robes. You're not wearing a beautiful wedding dress. You're wearing these crazy clothes. But you stare into these mirrors and then you say you will be married for time and all eternity. And that is not biblical. Now that I'm out, like I realize, but yeah, I was really excited to ask you about that.
But you guys have the Book of Mormon.
Yes.
So is it in there?
It isn't in the Book of Mormon. I don't know why they do that. They do still use the King James Bible. They use a quad book, which is the Doctrine and Covenants, the King James Bible, the Book of Mormon, and the Pearl of Great Price. And I don't know why it's not in anything. It wouldn't ever be listed in a book because it's considered sacred secret. I didn't even know what was going to happen to me till I was already in there because even your grandparents won't tell you. Like my grandparents knew. They'd been, through, everybody'd been through, but they just say, oh, you'll find out when you get there. And then next thing you know, you're naked in a room, putting on a poncho, what is going on here? But yeah, it was, and
Which,
nothing sexual happens, but
which King James version do you use?
they don't use the Apocrypha at all. They use the one after when they took them all out. So as far as I know, it's just the King James. But I do know that they edit out a lot of things, and then they'll also tell you, like if the prophet gets a revelation and it says, "Okay, you should do this and this and this," like don't drink coffee is one of their things. Oh, well, that was they believe in direct revelation from God. And so they believe that God tells the prophet and the prophet tells the people. And I have quite another, after I got out and I did a lot of research, I kind of feel that they channeled this book very much the same as John Dee channeled the angels. I feel like Crowley channeled AWAS, all these channelings, even Jehovah's Witnesses, right? They have a book from being channeled. Like, I mean,
Right.
Angel told them that this is the right way. And always when you get down these little rabbit holes, there's always some weird exchange. Either they go into polygamy, like Muhammad and Joseph Smith and all this goes into polygamy, or they full on go into like Crowley stuff, Parsons stuff, like complete wife swapping, whatever's happening there. And it's always some price that God would never ask, right? Like that's not something God would have us do.
His name was the one that Crowley interviewed in the Egyptian pyramids, because his name is IWAS.
Uh-huh.
Not I am, it's I was.
Oh, that's very true. Very true.
How do you not get that you're interviewing Satan?
Yeah, no kidding. That one, and I know he wouldn't have accepted, like I think with Joseph Smith, he wouldn't have accepted an alien, but he did accept a being of light that came over him so badly that he passed out and the whole room went dark. Like that doesn't really sound angelic to me. He
Right.
also saw 24 apparitions after that, and I'm like, including his dead family members, which is not, that's not okay, really. We're gonna get into necromancy with Mormons. They go down that whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, I've heard about you guys baptizing people that have been dead for a while.
And Miriam, we seal them in those sealing mirrors. And if they have a baby die, they seal the baby and all kinds of things. They say that families will be together forever and they're sealed for time and all eternity. And so not only you, but your children are sealed to you. And this is how they nail a lot of people, especially Latin culture community, because they promise them this holistic, like, oh, you can be together forever and ever. Like, it doesn't matter what that Bible says. Like, come here, we can show you a better way. And they're very family oriented people, and I just feel like it's a great deception that leads to a demonic entity. I feel like at the top of their church, from what I've studied, Abraxas is their god, and it's yeah. His mom had mentioned, Joseph Smith's mom mentioned that she served the house of Abrac in one of her manuscripts that's in her own hand, and her father was a immigrant from Scotland, and I think a lot of this plays into what happened with good old Joe. But that's just my conjecture, of course.
You could probably write an interesting book.
Yes. So do all demons, have you seen different, like the names, like I gave you that one, like, is it kind of on spot? Like what we hear, like you look up things or you look up, different ones or over different things, dominions, all that stuff. Is that accurate?
Dominions are actually angels.
Okay.
In the Bible, it mentions in Ephesians 6, where we talk about you have the guardian angels at the very bottom, and then the next level up is the archangels, And then I don't know the order. I know that the very top is cherubim and then seraphim.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 4 choirs. There's 9 choirs of angels. We have thrones, dominions. Honey Butt,
Yes.
do you remember the 9 choirs of angels?
I think it's like seraphim, Raphaim, something like that, right?
Seraphim and cherubim are at the very top. So you have cherubim and then seraphim. Seraphim was the very
Right.
top. So Satan
Oh.
was a seraphim.
Okay.
Okay. So you want to come closer so you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed.
She's like, no way.
So it's seraphim, cherubim.
Cherubim.
Oh gosh. Dominations, thrones,
Dominions.
dominions,
Dominions. Thrones.
powers,
Powers.
ritual.
What is it?
Is it rituals? Choir rituals. Yeah. And principalities,
Principalities.
archangels, and angels. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
So 9
Oh.
choirs of angels. But for every classification of angel, there is also a demon. And then you have, think about the 7 deadly sins. Each one of those has a demon over it. But for however many demons there are, each one is its own separate species. So the same thing with angels. There's supposed to be like millions of angels, and each one is its own species. Now, as much as you would like to think that angels are super intelligent, I would imagine they are on some level. But there's a lot of demons that are very stupid. I've been involved in exorcisms where the priest was speaking Latin to Satan, and Satan talks Latin back to him. When it's time to exorcise the demons, they don't always know Latin. They do know languages, but they don't know Latin.
Wow. And then so these, I know it's as above, so below, like you mentioned, there's, lots of different demonic entities in this world. And I mean, I guess which ones would you say are most impressioned at this time? Like, do you have any?
Satan has 5 generals, and his 5 generals are pretty much leading the world in. You have one of them is over the transgender movement. One of them is over porn addiction and sex addiction and things like that. One of them is over abortion, although I think there are 2 over abortion, Moloch and Baal. And then there's, I'm missing some. That there are others
That's
that are over other things, but most recently in an exorcism, this would have been, I think, last month. I had 2 exorcists getting in contact with me, and they described the case, what they needed, what was going on. And so I had to tell them why this was happening, like what this person got involved with, and walk them through and what would cause the situation to ease up. But what would cause it to ease up is that the person would have to join the group that he's trying not to join. And then they asked me for the name of the demon. And I said, I'm going to have to go to adoration or mass to get that answer for you. I don't,
right.
it just doesn't roll off the tongue. And I just instantly know.
Right.
So I went to mass. I was on a Sunday, and Sunday afternoon, I I called the priest and let him know the demon's name. So he texted the other exorcist that was doing the exorcism. And during the exorcism, when the demon manifested, he bound it in the name of Christ and made it confirm its name. And they got it to confirm that the name that I gave them was that demon's name.
Wow. Wow. I know that, yeah, there is real. I think that the people nowadays, you know how they say that old saying, like the biggest trick the devil ever performed was making you think he wasn't real?
Right.
And I feel that's how they are about this demon situation. Like, I don't think a lot of people believe like they used to. You know, you used to.
People that
People,
ask me things like that, I'm like, well, or say things like that, I'm like, what else don't you believe in the Bible?
right? Yes, exactly.
God says
And it's scary right now. Like it feels like um there's more unleashed on this world at this time. I don't know if that's how you feel, but that's how I feel
well,
right now.
exorcists will tell you that for every abortion that's performed, a demon gets released from hell.
Wow.
According to Planned Parenthood, they murder 1.3 million babies every year just in the United States. So that's
That's a lot of army.
1.3 million demons being released every year.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, since 72 or 73, since Roe versus Wade passed, we've had like 57 million dead babies. So that's
Wow.
57 million more demons.
Wow. And I mean, people don't also understand when they say legions, like, because you can look up these demonic principalities, like the princes or whatever of certain area, and it shows how many legions are under each one. Like somebody didn't just sit down and throw out. And I don't believe that they just said 37 for him, 5 for this one. Like, what? Where did this come from? You know, like you really don't believe, like, but they'll believe other things. They'll believe in angels, but not fallen
Right.
angels. Right? That's so
Right.
weird to me. And I'm like, wait, you believe in God, but you don't believe in the adversary? Like, how is that possible? You know, everything
I
is
did a talk.
similar.
I did a talk in 2011, and after my talk, this guy came up to me and said that he grew up in the church. Um, he was baptized as an infant, grew up in the church, has been Catholic his whole life, never believed in the devil or hell or demons
Wow.
until he came and saw my talk. And he looks like he's in his 80s. It's like,
Wow.
how did you make it this far? You know, what other pieces of the Bible did you decide to discard? You know, and decide
Right.
it's not real. And there's so many parts like that. I mean, people get involved in the New Age, and to me, New
Oh,
Age is more dangerous than Satanism, because Satanism, Satan, bam, he's in your face. You know, he's the bad guy.
right.
You know, and the good guy is on the other side. But in New Age, there's only good guys. There's only angels. There's only God. Everybody that dies goes to heaven.
Right. And they're tricking people into doing weird things like doing like where they leave their body and go, I can't remember that word, but where they go visit heaven and visit places. And I'm like, anytime you leave your body, that
That's
sounds like a real bad idea. Right. I'm like, this sounds like a plan that you didn't fully think through. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Uh, but with New Age, they really encourage it.
it's like the most outrageous items are now sugar coated, and you're told you should do this.
Yes.
You know, like you can get in contact with your spirit guide. You know, and there's I took a class on contacting my spirit guide, but by then I had been a high wizard for X number of years and had been a Satanist, so I was just seeing what's the latest BS that they're covering now.
Right.
And it was like hang a mirror from the ceiling and then use sage or incense to blow into the mirror and then relax your eyes, and you're supposed to use your hands in certain gestures and say a prayer. but not just any prayer. They gave you the words to say. And it's not in English, and I don't know what exactly you're saying, which, I would never say a prayer like that. I've got to know exactly what I'm saying.
Yes.
And then you relax your eyes and stare into the mirror, and it's supposed to show you who your spirit guide is. And your spirit guide might come up as a wolf or a bear or a dog or sheep or snake. Whatever it is, that's your spirit guide, and you're supposed to pray to them.
I bet God loves that, right? Not. And this whole thing now about the Nephilim and the fallen, like I know about the Nephilim and the fallen, but like these people that are going crazy with this, like, oh, they're at the mall, they're here, they're there, they're all over. Like, I'm like, you guys are, yeah, they are somewhere. And I do believe like they probably went underground, but do I think they're at the mall? No. What do you feel like about all this nonsense?
There's actually, now, obviously, they're in foreign countries that we can't just go to and check it out. But there's museums around the world that purportedly advertise that they have Nephilim in their museum. And they're dead, of course.
I believe it. I believe in the Nephilim. I 100% believe that, if you know how, well, the fallen didn't die, I highly doubt anyway, because the fallen angels, not the Nephilim, but the fallen that fell and followed Satan, they were punished for mating with women, but like they're eternal beings. That was the whole point why God was upset that they came down here and did what they did, right? Because do you believe in Genesis 6? Am I okay to go down this road with you? Okay. Okay. Some people don't believe it, and I'm like, wait a minute. It's in there. And with the Bible, I am non-denominational anymore. But the one Bible I read is the Catholic Bible, because I went to Catholic school as a kid and I knew they didn't throw out the Apocrypha. I read the NRSV. And I'm like, you guys have to know this information. There's so much missing. If you don't know what's going on, you're not going to know what's going on, right? Like you're going to be eternally confused is what I feel. But
what would have really been a real hoot is when Martin Luther went through the Bible and started taking books out. There were 2 books that he was going to remove, and his friends talked him into leaving them there. And I thought, how would the world be different if the Protestants didn't have Daniel and Revelation to read?
wow.
Because so many of they're like Baptists, are all about the rapture. Do you believe in the rapture?
Yes.
They would have no rapture.
Right.
They would just see this Bible, this book that the Catholics have, and think they're insane. How dare they believe stuff like this is alien technology? What are they reading? We don't believe that.
Right.
But as it is, they have it just because Martin Luther's friends convinced him to leave it in.
Wow. I did not know that. That is actually, I mean, I think that it's funny that people will pick and choose, and they'll also pick and choose like the Mormon religion will say, well, that was just a story. That didn't really happen. That's a parable. That's this, that's that, and I'm like, were you there? Well, you were there. No, they weren't there.
Well, I had a guy last year. He told me that he would give me $10,000 if I could prove magic was real. I was like, all right, come over to my house right now. I'll prove it. He goes, you're going to prove it to me? I said, yes, I am. So he comes over, and I gave him 33 Bible verses to look up. And it's 33 verses where God says not to do magical things.
Right.
And I said, I accept cash or check.
Did he cough it up?
Or money order. I'm still waiting. He said that doesn't prove it. I was like, how does that not prove it? If God, if you couldn't lie, if lying was impossible, thou shalt not lie wouldn't be in the Bible. If you couldn't murder somebody, thou shalt not kill wouldn't be in the Bible. And if you couldn't do magic, don't do magical things wouldn't be in the Bible.
Right. Yeah.
Truth
Well, I mean, it's all over the Bible. Yeah.
It's in the
I
Old
mean,
Testament
Moses.
and the New
Yeah.
Testament.
Moses's stick, what was he doing with it? They could do the same thing. Why? Because the jinn already had magic. Like, I mean, they couldn't do exactly, but they could do some. And they mimic that, the devil always mimics what God can do. I mean,
Well,
that's normal
we
for
have
him, I guess.
when I was first made a high wizard, I was told that there were high wizards in the Bible. They just weren't called high wizards. They were called the 450 prophets of Baal.
Yep. And I see so much now that even though they've been able to kind of take over the whole stuff with the abortions and babies and family that way, and then they split up families and made the woman not made, but like really enforced more of a woman's world, like that whole feminist movement type thing. And then the men were not viewed as important in the home in many places. And then now I see a new movement, which I'm involved with because inadvertently I'm here. My daughter, it's estrangement. And I went on a site after this happened. I got onto some Facebook groups. I thought, well, I was super sad. I couldn't understand. We'd been best friends. I was super close with her. She was my oldest. I mean, just all these things. And she gets married to this guy. And all of a sudden I'm a horrible, narcissistic, terrible parent that's no good. Don't come around. Don't talk to me. Change my number, change my life, change everything. It's been almost 5 years since anybody's seen her in the whole entire family. She has her own child now. And I thought, man, I'm feeling bad for myself. So I go on and I look up some groups and I join, and there are so many parents that this is happening to right now. You would be shocked. It's like everywhere. And it's good parents, it's bad parents, it's medium parents, it's, throw out all the parents. Like, I don't even know. It's very weird.
Yeah, but I think one of the women said at Fatima that the latest attack was going to be on the family.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we're living through that now.
Yes.
We have men and women, girls and boys, who think that they want their bodies to look like Satan's, to not have any sex.
Right. And the fallen angels look like that as well. It says they were neither male nor female.
Right.
And you don't.
A feminine arm and a masculine arm. And then it has two children, a male and a female, on their knees in front of it.
Yep. And that is just showing us exactly the agenda, but everybody wants to say the quiet part out loud now. It used to kind of be like on the DL, I mean, it was kind of a secret thing, or people didn't want to change fully. They just want to dress a certain way in private or whatever. And now it's gone completely wild. And like you said, it's hitting the kids. I mean, this is normal. Yeah.
In New York a few years ago, they had to open up all the mental hospitals and let out all the patients, because if you're a man and you can now claim you're a woman and that's acceptable, or the opposite is true and that's acceptable, then who are you to say that I'm not a 16th century samurai warrior?
Right.
Who are you to say that I'm Napoleon? If these people are normal and that used to be a mental disorder, then all these people are normal and none of them have mental disorders. So they had to open up the doors and let all these crazy people out.
Wow. And do you feel that sometimes that's demonic? I mean,
Yes.
I feel like it is. I don't know. It seems to me like when how they like to be called them and they, and all I can think of when I hear I want to be called they is the story of Legion.
Right.
For he is many. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you wouldn't want that. You see probably far more than I do. So
Well, I get contacted every day. I get emails all the time and phone calls, and people tell me what's wrong with their lives, their family, what their kids are doing now, what my wife or my husband, and there's no limits
Wow.
as to how far people will go, how bad it will get. Um, Things that I hear stories that you think are made up. And, I know phrases that shouldn't even exist in the real world.
Right.
Like gang stalking. Do you know what gang stalking is?
I don't.
Gang stalking is, let's say that for about a month, every day that you leave your house, there's a black car in your neighborhood that is waiting for you. And when you leave, they follow you everywhere you go. But it's not always the same car, but it is always a black sedan. And no matter where you go, there's a black sedan. When you get to the gym, there's a couple leaving the gym that makes eye contact with you. And there's also a couple that walks in behind you and they seem to know you, but you don't know who they are. But you start noticing they're at the gym, they're at the grocery store, they're at the video shop, they're at the library, they're at the bookstore, they're in the mall. Everywhere you go, this couple is. They're always dressed the same way and you can recognize them. But if you walk up to them and say, "Are you following me? Who are you?" Like, we don't know you. Why are you talking to us? When you go home, let's say that you've got that OCD that says all your knickknacks have to face north. So you go home and one of your knickknacks is facing south. You know that you didn't do it because you got OCD really bad. So
How did you know that?
I was going to say you have OCD like you read about. So you know that you faced it north, but now it's facing south. You've got cereal on the countertop that you haven't opened yet, but it's opened. All your pictures are hung up a certain way, but now they're out of order. You haven't done that, and you live home alone. And you have bottles of soda in the fridge that have been opened, but no soda drunk out of them. And you had 9 bananas this morning, now you have 8. They come in your house and they mess with you. And I had a woman that had this happening to her. And if you tell the police any of these things, okay, all right, yeah, you go sit over there. And we'll type up some papers over here. And it's like, what's wrong with that woman over there? Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And,
why do they do this?
I'm not sure the real reason, but I've heard this story more times than I can tell you. And one woman, I told her, get cameras and put them in your house, but make sure they're hidden. Get the ones that fit inside speakers or inside your TV.
Right.
And when you get the video, then take that to the police department and show them. So she did that. And she told them what was happening, what she was going through. And the people are looking at her like she's crazy. And she said, "Is that a TV with a VCR? Put this tape in. This is from my house." So they put the tape in. It showed this woman leave the house. 5 minutes after she left, 9 people walked in her door.
Ooh.
9 walked in her door. They rearranged the furniture in the living room. They rearranged the flowers on top of the TV. And they rearranged her entire kitchen and moved her knickknacks all around. And then this guy was like, "Come on, we got to go. She'll be back soon." And they all ran out the door.
That's so weird.
And the police were like, now they're like, "Holy crap. We thought you were imagining all this." And she goes, "Yes, I know. but I talked to a friend and he told me to record it.
Wow. And they've got to be for some reason. It's got to be maybe like to drive her crazy or, make her
Well,
look crazy. I don't know.
there goes another phrase, gaslighting.
Hmm.
Do you know what gaslighting means?
Oh, yeah. Yes. That one yeah.
So they're trying to gaslight her so that nobody will believe anything she says.
Wow.
And
So it's weird.
it really is. It's and you know I've been dealing with this for 15 years. I imagine it was around before that, but I have only had a ministry for 15 years.
Right. That's something that, I mean, you can't even understand like why, and then you kind of wonder, well, like you said, if they get her discredited or whatever, then nobody will believe anything she says. Maybe she
Right.
has, you know how they say that there's people that can feel the Jesus in you. Like I've had this happen to me where I'm sure you've had it happen to you where you just meet somebody, like even if you just shake their hand or whatever, even if you don't touch them, they just hate you. They hate who you are. And you're like, wow, what did I do? And one time I was with my daughter and it was for her birthday. And then we found out why shortly after. But she said, Mom, I think that lady hates you. And I said, yeah, I know. She's like, you didn't even say anything to her. I said, I know. It's really weird. So then we walked around the corner and there was an offering table and some other weird stuff. I think she was a witch, and I mean, she wasn't really hiding much when you're saying leave offerings, your own things and all this stuff. And I'm like, no way. I told my daughter, get away from that thing. Don't put nothing on that. Who knows what they're doing with that table full of stuff, And she just hated me. Like it was weird. And other people are like, oh, we should go back to those cabins. And I'm like, no way. I'm not going. Because it was just a feeling. And Jesus tells us like if you're gonna have that happen to you just like that happened to me, right? Like, and sometimes that's a hard path. You've probably been on both sides of that, I imagine. So
Yes.
can you feel it when you weren't saved? Could you feel it from people?
No.
No.
If somebody had a demon that was really powerful, I could feel that, and I felt comforted by that.
Okay.
I felt good. I could trust that person because they were like me. And there was one day I was trying to split up a, uh, a Bible study group, and it doesn't do anything it doesn't affect the church really, but it's good practice. And so they introduced me to everybody in the room, and there was this guy they tried to bring me over to, and the closer I got to him, the sicker I felt. And so I experimented the entire rest of the night. How close could I get to this guy? And I couldn't get within 5 feet of him, or I would start feeling sick, physically ill. But if I wasn't close to him, I felt fine. And I didn't know why. I didn't know what's the difference in him and everybody else. And I found out a few years later that he belonged to a Maranatha Baptist church, but he was opening his own church. And he apparently had a bit of holiness in him that most of the people didn't have.
When you were in it like that, did you ever get specific assignments on people? Like not from people, but from like spirits,
We had our CEO of our second coven would get possessed by Satan himself. And then he would take notes with both hands and write down what it is our coven's supposed to be doing. And he's writing equally fast with the left hand and the right hand. And he's not even looking at the paper. He's like looking down and writing stuff up. And so we were supposed to attack. I say the example is like, it's like we have like 3 houses. 2 houses are back to back, one's at the end. And then there's privacy fences up around all of them. So each house thinks they're the only house that exists. One of the houses attacks the Baptist church, and one of the houses attacks the Catholic church. And then the house on the end writes materials on atheism, New Age religions, like always inventing a New Age religion or reinventing it, also on communism, socialism, things like that. So, and they're writing papers, books, making DVDs, movies about things that will take you away from God. You know, I tell people that Satanism isn't really about you worshiping Satan. It's about you not worshiping God. So in the Catholic Church, I saw the attack that was happening, but didn't understand it because my dad told me when I was 8 years old that all Catholics were going to hell. So I just believed that and didn't know why they were being attacked so much. Satan believes in only attacking churches that do him harm. So if your church is doing Satan harm, organized Satanism will attack you. If your church is doing no harm to the devil, he'll leave you alone and no reason to attack you.
So I have a question. Did they ever worry about the Mormons?
No, it's a cult.
There you go, people.
They left us alone.
Yep.
They
I
didn't do
didn't figure.
anything. They didn't do anything with Jehovah's Witnesses either. They didn't do anything with Seventh-day Adventists. They saw all of them as cults. And they've already got the devil. They don't need us to join them and do anything worse. So the Baptist Church had some very strong prayer warriors in it. The Baptist Church was against being a Freemason. The Baptist Church was very conservative in their clothes. They were against abortion and they were against homosexuality. By 95, some of their members were getting abortions. Their members that used to wear floor-length skirts were now wearing mini skirts. The ones that used to wear a high collar are now showing cleavage. All their males, all their deacons are now becoming Freemasons. They're now holding ceremonies for their son or daughter who just had a gay marriage that wasn't legal, but it's the closest they could get at that time. And so they're having like a remembrance ceremony, sometimes even in the church.
Wow.
And so by 95, Satan came down and said, we don't need the Baptists to be attacked anymore. We've watered down their faith enough. They've fallen by the wayside. Their prayer warriors are no longer warriors. So we stopped doing that. People ask me, but this woman said, you didn't say that Satan attacked the Pentecostals. I said, right, he doesn't. You guys don't need any help.
Everything, it feels so corrupt right now. And I just feel like, and you've been out a long time. And that was then.
Well, why don't you join the church that gets attacked the most?
That's the Catholics, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I did go to Catholic school when I was a little girl. It was actually a weird situation. I was still Mormon, but my mom had a Catholic friend, and she said, "Oh, she's smart, and they have a really good gifted program, and it's private, and it'll be better." So I did go, and I didn't know a whole lot of what was going on. I knew we had to eat fish on Fridays, and we went to mass. Even I had to go to mass. I didn't know what it was, but I went a lot as a kid just because they were like, "Well, you're here, you've got to go." So I didn't know what they were doing, but I at least got to have some exposure, which is pretty rare in Utah. So that was when I grew up in Idaho. So kind of an interesting little blip.
If you watch there's a documentary on Netflix about Mormons, and it talks about this area of Utah that's you kind of like in the middle of nowhere, and there's a bunch of caves like inside of a mountain, and
Mhm.
each one of the caves is a different apartment, and it has these Mormons that are living like a man will be there with his 12 wives, and
Yes.
it's a very interesting documentary.
Is it the Stay Sweet one?
I've seen that one. I
My
don't think it's that one.
my brother-in-law is Warren Jeff's nephew. Well, my sister just got a divorce, so I guess he's my ex-brother-in-law, but I have interviewed him on here. Warren Jeffs is the leader of the fundamentalist, church that he went to prison from that documentary. I think it was already occurring well before, but he was trying to build the new Zion in Texas. And my brother-in-law was there during that time. He had been raised with 3 moms, over 30 kids. Eventually, at some point, there were 12 moms, and he doesn't know how many kids anymore, but, he got excommunicated from the church because he didn't like how young the girls were. That wasn't a thing when the next one up, Rulon Jeffs, was over the church. It wasn't the same way. They were older. They had to be 18, and he asked one question, and he was sent home to Utah or Colorado City, Hilldale. You're speaking probably of Colorado City, maybe. They have a lot of caves because they'll bump back and forth over the state line so they can't get arrested. The towns are on a line, the county line, and the caves system can connect them to the other state because they used to prosecute it. And now they don't so much about polygamy anymore, but they do where it involved young girls, because I think his youngest wife was like 12. It was really not not a
He,
good situation.
he could be a oh, what are those people called? Um, the religion that started in the 7th century.
The Were they polygamists? No.
No, they just like to sleep with young girls. If they
Oh.
if they die a martyr, they get 17 virgins.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we get a planet and virgins. Just kidding, but not really. The church will lie about that now, but, they say that never happened, but it did.
I can't even think of what those people are called.
Ah, it's wild some of the ways the people can be led. It always amazes me that people can actually be led to believe certain things, and even I
But
know God is really loving and forgiving, but that's a lot.
it's not necessarily that they believe it; it's that they want it to be true.
Right.
You know, in the Catholic Church, we have the word concupiscence, and it means being led by your basic carnal sins. Concupiscence is what leads so many of us to sin, and it's sexual sins. And yet, in other religions, your sexual sins is a reward.
Yep. Yep. And I think with the sex, power, and money, you pretty much can dominate all of those things. I mean, that's pretty much the carnality of most people, I believe, in my opinion. Uh, I think that at the top of every tip top organization of any sort, there's always corruption. That's what leads me away from almost anything, because I'm always nervous about that. Because
Yeah,
at
but
one point in my life, I was so devoted, you know?
you don't want to let a man get between you and God. Now you're saying that man is bigger than God.
Right. Yep. I I'm nervous about it at this point in my journey, just because I feel like I don't know where I'm supposed to be yet. So I just pray, read the Bible, pray. I take it very literal. And some people say, "Oh, that's not true. That's just a story and this and that." But
Well, let me give you a suggestion of some place to go.
yes,
And
yes.
I'm not going to say the Catholic Church. It's in a Catholic church, but you don't have to go. You don't have to go to mass. You don't have to sit and listen to what could be a boring homily. You don't have to do that. You don't have to listen to music. Um, find an adoration chapel, and you might have to call around to different churches and find out if they have an adoration chapel. And is it perpetual adoration? Is it open 24 hours a day? Because if it is, you can go at any time and just sit in a room with God and be still and listen to what he tells you.
All right.
And if he
I'll do
doesn't
that.
say anything, then enjoy the silence.
That's actually a gift too. I have 6 kids.
Like my dad had
Silence is good.
heard about adoration for years and didn't know what it was. And so I told him that I had to do a few things and then go to adoration. And he says, "Well, I'd like to go. I'd like to experience adoration." Okay. So, and my dad was Baptist. So I drove, did all my errands, ended up at the church, I helped him inside the adoration chapel. And when you go inside, if the lights are out, then there's a certain protocol to open everything up. So I come in, turned on the lights, genuflected, which is bowing to one knee, um, opening up the adoration monstrance doors, turned on the candle up above it, and then genuflected again and sat down. My dad's sitting on the back pew. Some people came in, a large family came in, and they were all very respectful to my dad. My dad was at this time probably 81 or 82 years old. He lived to be 84. And he's very big on respect. He had also been a Marine. So respect is everything to him. And they were very respectful to him and the entire family. And then when we left, I walked him outside, got him in the car, and I said, "So what did you think of that room?" And he says, "Oh, this is going to seem odd, I think, for you to hear, but I felt more peace and more love in that room, like just pure joy, than I have ever felt in a room before." And I said, "Okay, so you're Baptist and you believe that the Spirit of God is everywhere." He says, "Yes." I said, "Okay, but in the Catholic Church, we have the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ." I said, "You see that big silver art project on the wall?" He said, "Yes." I said, "That's called a monstrance. And that thing I just described to you about Jesus is inside that." So every Catholic church has that. So your Baptist church has the Spirit of God. We have the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. And he was like, "Oh." I said,
Wow.
so I got him interested in going to a mass, but he died before he could go. But I had asked him, "You're getting ready to kick the bucket here. Um, did you really want a Baptist funeral service?" He was like, "No, it doesn't matter." And I said, "Can I give you a Catholic funeral mass?" He goes, "Yeah, no, let's do that." So I finally got him to go to mass. He just had to be dead first.
Well, at least he went, right? At least he was there. I mean, that's a great story that at least he felt that much love, and I think that's the main part, like, Mormon church is very works based. It's very climb the ladder corporation. Um, very put together. It reminded me very much of the OTO stories you told, like very CEO, OTO, like very, very similar type of thing. And when I got out, I went to a non-denominational Christian service and they had a big sermon on grace. And Mormons don't really teach that because they want you to be earning your way to heaven every minute of the day. Like it's got to be busy. Mormons are so busy that they don't have time to even look at their theology. You're busy and you're supposed to have tons of kids. So, because we have to bring down our premortal children. They believe in premortal existence and that you have these babies that are up there waiting to be brought down. So you're encouraged to have a lot of kids and all these things. So you're just so busy and there's no time to really ever think about yourself. There's no time to really ever think, just be quiet with God. There's just always something going on. And I never ever felt peace or like that I would really be loved, like loved by God. Like it didn't feel that way. It felt like you had to check off every checkbox and then maybe if you're lucky, that day you felt loved. And I remember thinking, man, they just give out the love. Like they're just saying, God loves you. And I don't agree with the people that think they can do anything and God's just gonna take you no matter. I do believe that in the Bible. I do. I believe, you've got to do some things. You can't just do whatever you want. I mean, and
Yeah,
say sorry. Yeah.
I have a lot of the Protestants believe once saved, always saved. I don't
Yeah.
believe in that. Paul doesn't teach that.
No,
Paul
I don't
says,
believe
figure
that.
out your salvation with fear and trembling. That doesn't say, but once saved, always saved.
No.
There's a list in Galatians and in Revelation that tells you these people will not inherit the kingdom of God. At the end of that, it doesn't say, but once saved, always saved.
Right. And I think that he will give us some grace if you're a true believer, but you can't just do whatever you want. Like you can't. It's what that's wild. That's a wild concept in itself to say, oh yeah, it's totally fine. But I also think that the Mormons take it too far and they're like, oh, you have to do all these Freemason symbol ritual banana stuff to go to heaven.
Yeah, but
And they truly
that's,
believe that.
the Freemasons are trying to take down the Catholic Church. They will admit that their enemy is the Catholic Church. So if you're
Wow.
attacking the first Christian church, what does that say about you?
Yeah. Yep, and they're so widespread now. Like, I didn't know I was a Freemason. That's why I speak out, it really pissed me off. You can see I'm a little bit of a firecracker, which is why this is called unfiltered. Um, and after I got out, I'm pretty sure they wished they had told me the truth. I don't have a problem with the Mormons doing whatever they want to do. Hey, if you want to be a Satanist, if you want to be a Freemason, if you want to do whatever you want to do, you have a life to do that with. But when you lie to people and you tell them it's about God and that you're going to heaven because you did these rituals and this is so super secret because of God and it's all God and you got special underwear now and all these things and you're like, oh, this is all about God. Okay, I'm going to do this because this is about God. Now, that's what pissed me off. If they had said, hey, lady, you're going to be a Freemason and you're going to do these things, and this is what we're about, and this is how we are, you know what you're doing when you go to become a Freemason. They tell you, they don't tell you all the degrees, but you know what you're going into when you walk in the door, you know. That's the part they didn't do. And that's why I'll speak out about it until they admit freely and stop lying to people. And cuz they take a lot of people from your church as well. And they lie to them. They'll do anything to get the numbers. And I think in the last 5 years people have seen that is the case. They've always got a new revelation, like, the garments were too big of a pain because they went clear down to here and down to the ankle. Oh, well, we shortened them. Wait, I thought this was a revelation from God. I thought he talks to you. You tell the things. Why are we changing the things? Oh, no, no, we're going to do this. Like you said about the whole Baptist thing, like it used to be strict and then it not so much. And they've done the same things. It's constantly changing, watered down. You know, their book has been redone thousands of times. And the racism, I don't know how any person of brown or black color could ever be in the church, but they are. My niece is black, and I'm always like, yeah, Mormonism isn't probably a good idea, even when I still was in it, because I knew what they would say. I knew that they kept the priesthood from them for until 1960s, until it was unpolitical, not politically correct. And then they had a revelation, and then they gave it to them. You can't go to heaven, according to Mormons, if you don't have the priesthood. And so there's too many weird things with them. The Star of Rampham is their priesthood, Melchizedek priesthood symbol, by the way. Like there's just a lot of stuff in that church it
But in
it's
the Jehovah's Witnesses, they kept coming up with the end of time prophecy. The last one was 1973, and Jesus didn't come back. And now, since then, there's been another one, but they kept it on the download this time. And they said that Jesus did come back and he took up his 144,000 Jehovah's Witnesses,
then why would you even go to church anymore?
right?
You may as well just go do what you want, because if he's already took he's gonna take your I
Now,
don't
they also
know.
have at Easter, they do the where they pass around the unconsecrated host, and the only person that's allowed to take it is if you know you're one of the 144,000.
Okay. But didn't shouldn't that have stopped if he already took all the people?
You would think so.
Oh, geez. I mean, it's so funny to me that all of it is a corruption of the simplicity of Paul's letters. Like if you go back to the simplicity of Christ and read the letters, like it's really not what people make it. It's really not. All these
Yeah.
other things get driven into religion, and then they
There,
make it something else.
there's so many references to Jesus being God in the Bible, but in the Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe that Jesus and Saint Michael are the same person and that Jesus isn't God.
Same for Mormons. They believe that Jesus is Jesus, God is the Father, Jesus is the Son, and the Holy Spirit is a whole nother thing. They don't believe in the Trinity at all.
Do they know that Jesus is the only begotten Son of
Yes, but they also believe that God came down and actually had sex with Mary.
God? Um, but that's supposed to be the Holy Spirit that did that.
They believe that he was created just as any man, not by like a miracle, like it was not just done. It was, yeah, like the
Well, that
act.
begotten means that he was there at the same time as God the Father. He was there whenever God came into existence, which was never, because he was always there, that so was his son.
Yeah, their theology is the one thing, my grandpa was a Catholic, and he converted for my grandma towards like in his in his 30s, but he was just on a wild man's mission until he got pretty old. And then when he did convert for my grandma, they went to the temple and he got really active, but on the sly one day he said, "But I still believe in the Trinity." And I said, yeah, I think so. But we weren't supposed to be talking like that, We were both Mormon. I said, "Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's how it goes." And he's like, "Me either." But he
The
loved my grandma. He wanted to make her happy. So,
Jehovah's Witnesses, when they baptize you, it's in the name of the Father and the Kingdom Hall
mm,
and the Holy Spirit.
hmm, I didn't know that.
Even though
They
Bible says that no one gets to the Father but through Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, like I said, multiple references to Jesus being God. But then they took the King James version and then added more heresy to it.
Mm. That's kind of weird because we have a movie that we watch in the temple, and there is a Michael in the movie that is, I believe, the projection of the future Adam, because we all get a new name when we go through the temple as well. And I know the archangel may be part of that, but they definitely specifically name Michael in this movie. It's been so long since I've been through any of that garbage. PTSD in myself, but they specifically mention that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the whole way we get our apron in the temple is Satan, Adam is praying, and we do all the Masonic symbols and everything, handshakes and weird stuff, but they do this one cry out, and it used to be that they would say Pele El, but now they say, "Oh God, hear the words of my mouth." And they changed it, and it's and so now that he would cry out, and then I guess they said that means like he was crying out to the god of that world, and Lucifer shows up and he says, "Hey, God's going to notice you're naked. You should put this apron on." And so all the patrons stand and put on the apron, the green apron of fig leaves, and we all stand up and do that at the same time. And I'm like, I remember thinking, why are we doing what Satan's telling us to do? Like, this seems so strange, like, but they also believe Satan's our brother, and like all that. Yeah, it it's a whole
Seems like
situation. His
that would have
fallen
tipped you
brother.
off. Seems like that
What
would
was
have tipped you off.
Oh, yeah. No, all of it is so far. After I left that day, and you can't just leave it. Like they say you can. They say you can leave, but you can't leave because your whole family's there. Like they tell you like, "Okay, if anybody doesn't feel comfy," and you've already been through so much stuff, it's a 2-hour thing. And then you're like, "Oh my gosh." And I remember like nudging my grandma and saying like, "What are we doing? Like what is happening?" And she's like, "Don't worry, you'll get used to it." And I was like, "What? Is that how you're supposed to feel on your best day ever? This is supposed to be my best day ever. I'm going to heaven now. I do all the things and wear my underwear." That is. And I remember just sitting there going, "This is so weird. I just want out of here." That feeling of panic almost. And I just had to get out of there. And I didn't leave. I mean, nobody does. We all suck it up because we know that our family's going to be disappointed or upset or whatever. So,
I
yeah,
saw. Have you seen? What's the woman's name? Leah Remedy.
the
And
Scientology thing.
yeah, but it doesn't
Yes.
talk about Scientology. There's an episode I think that talks about Mormonism. There's an episode that talks about Jehovah's Witnesses, and it talks about all the abuse that's in all of these, like not
Yeah.
just what they do to you as a religion, but all the sexual abuse that's in all of them.
Yeah. Yep. I believe it. I've heard, okay, so what I told you about was the temple rites. That's called the first anointing. But there's another thing. If you go through and you get a second anointing, which is what the highest up members get, the men, of course, because women are only saved by their husband's priesthood. They used to say unmarried women couldn't go to heaven, but I think they've changed that. But anyways, the second anointing for the quorum of the 70 and the quorum of the 12 and the top apostles, they get this, and it's used to be very secretive. Most people didn't know about it, and you can literally do anything after you get the second anointing, and they say you will go to heaven still. Like it doesn't matter if you kill somebody, if you rape somebody. So it kind of makes you wonder if it goes along with these things that you hear about these abuses, you know. because they feel like they're saved. There's nothing they can do to be not saved at that point. Even murder.
How do people justify that?
No. Most people don't know about it. It's secret.
We've had a good conversation, but
Yes.
we didn't really cover my story.
Yeah, we got off kilter a bit. I definitely would love for you. I don't know what time frame you're on, but if you would like to, kind of let people know, like especially like your main parts of your story, where you've come, how far you've come, all of that,
Oh, I can give you the lowlights of my story, the highlights, whichever you prefer.
Absolutely.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest condensed version. So I started in wanting to find out if magic was real. So I did 3 magic spells for money. One I found $5, one I found $10, one I found 1,000. I joined a satanic coven, not knowing it was a satanic coven when I was 12. That got me involved in child pornography for 4.5 years, and not realizing I was being re-victimized every time. I thought I was the luckiest kid in the world. I performed my first assisted abortion when I was 14, 3 months before turning 15. When I graduated from high school, I went off to find say another satanic coven because I knew they weren't going to advertise it in the town square. But it turns out they advertised it in the town square. And I joined a satanic coven that was associated with my school. And these were kids away from home for the first time and thought Satan was all about getting drunk, getting high, and getting laid. And I've been doing that since I was 12. I didn't need a satanic coven for that. So I looked into, I called my first coven, they were the OTO coven. And they got me hooked up with Satan's World Church, or World Church of Satan. And I started going there. Got into abortions to get the devil's attention. Became a high wizard when I was 21. Got to travel the world without a passport. Got to be on private planes most of the time. Met kings and queens, presidents, monarchs, rock stars, actors. Got to party with all these people. Made 1,200 rock stars. If you listen to music between 87 and 99, and they were a brand new rock star during that time frame, I made them. Now, if you listen to Bruce Springsteen during that time, he signed way before me. But people will ask me at my talks, did you sign Kiss? Kiss was a big name when I was 6. Did you sign Led Zeppelin? They were a big name when I was 2.
Right.
Did I sign Ozzy Osbourne? Again, he was big when I was 6. Know your history, people. Come on. But anybody else, like I said, 87 to 99, I signed 1,200 acts. I continued on my role of evil. In a certain year, I got tired of what I was seeing, got tired of what I was doing. I had done 146 assisted abortions. I had helped split 120 churches. I had done pretty much everything that you could possibly do to sin. And when you can sin with impunity, it gets boring after a while. And I just wanted to escape. So they watch everything you do. I have a bank account with $87 million in it, but it belongs to my coven. I have 12 cars that I drive, but they belong to my coven. I live in a mansion in Calabasas, and I have a condo in Manhattan and a condo in Atlanta, but they all belong to my coven. And my real bank account's about $265. My apartment, I live in Frenchtown in Tallahassee, Florida. Frenchtown sounds nice. It's the ghetto. And my real car is a Nissan Sentra, and it's older. So, when I was a Satanist living in Calabasas, I drove a Lamborghini Diablo. but I didn't, that wasn't my private car. It was a car that belonged to another Satanist that I was allowed to borrow. When I dressed as the High Wizard, I'm wearing an Armani suit, a tuxedo from the 1800s. But when you visit me at home, I'm wearing a Metallica t-shirt and cut-off jeans and flip-flops. So, I'm quite a bit different when I'm not in the coven than when I am, when I'm working versus not. So, since I'm being watched for everything I do, I slowly pilfer money out of my own account, because even my own account is watched. And I do whatever I can until I've pilfered enough, and then for what I think is enough. And I made an appointment at a Satanic doctor's office, and I was the last appointment of the day. It's 5 p.m. And I drove there, but I didn't stop. I didn't get off the exit at the right time. I just kept going. And I drove till I ran out of gas. And I'd taken all my credit cards with me. I cut them up along the way. And then I sold my car for scrap and got a Greyhound bus ticket, tried to get into Canada. And I got rejected at the border. And they said I could go anywhere Greyhound goes. So I opened up a United States Atlas, closed my eyes and put my finger down, and it landed on Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I lived 1 year off the grid and 2 years on the grid. And then I bought a car and tried to get into Canada again. And again, I got rejected at the border. And I'm heading back to Oklahoma, actually. And somebody calls me and we talk. And he said, there's a border crossing near Burlington, Vermont, where there's no border guard there. You can just drive straight across. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I'm heading that way. I'm about 2 hours away, and I am dead to the world tired. And so I pulled over at a rest stop and took a nap. Except that when I woke up, it wasn't 2 hours later, it was the next day. It was in the morning. I'd been asleep for like 14 hours.
Oh, wow.
So I got up, stretched, went to the bathroom, came back to the car and cranked it up and drove that way. When I crossed the border, I got pulled over by a border guard. And he searches my car top to bottom, inside and out, while he tells me his life story. And in that life story, he tells me that he's been trying to get this job for 3 years. And today is his very first day on the job. And I realized that had I driven across the border yesterday and not taken a nap, I'd be safely in Canada right now. He's got a sense of humor. So I then drove to Burlington, Vermont. I was worth $18 and I had half a tank of gas. I got a job my first day in town at a bar called Nectar's. It's a bar and a restaurant. It's a concert venue spot. I stayed there for a while. Then I moved to another bar, and then I got involved in retail. And I bounced around there. I went from a manager at Finish Line to a manager at Sunglass Hut to a manager at Piercing Pagoda. And one day this woman comes up, wants to buy a pair of gold hoop earrings. I show her the perfect pair, and she tells me, actually, I'm shopping with my daughter. When I'm done, I'll come back and buy them. And I know that everybody that says that, what they mean is, I'm going to go find it cheaper someplace else. But she had an honest face. I knew she was coming back. 3 hours later, she came back. We did the transaction. At the end of the transaction, I said, if you call this 800 number on this receipt and take a survey, you might win $1,000. She goes, that's great. I've got something for you too. And she reached her hand in her purse, and I thought, oh no. She's going to pull out a Jack Chick pamphlet, tell me that I'm sinning and I need to drop to my knees and beg for forgiveness. Well, these things I can't do because I sold my soul to the devil when I was 13. And instead, she pulls out this cheap gold-colored piece of tin. I sell jewelry. I know what cheap is. This is cheap. You could probably make 1,000 of these with a Coke can. And, and she says the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I remember that I partied with 1,200 rock stars. I probably partied with about 10,000. You give somebody unlimited booze and drugs that can write songs and poetry, and they'll say some strange stuff. You know, my example is like the number one song of 1999 was Bow It to Bob by Kid Rock. Now, when you have your breakout song, sometimes that's the best song you ever do. That song goes to number one. And in the case of Bow It to Bob, that made Kid Rock a rock god. You know, but the lyrics to Bow It to Bob is Bow It to Bob, to dang, diggy, diggy, up jumps the boogie. Like, that's the best you could do. That's what you came out with. That's what beat every other song of the year. Like nobody else could come up with anything better than that. So what she said to me sounded weirder than that. She said, the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army. And I thought, Blessed Mother, ISIS? Guy, I don't know who this is. I grew up Baptist. Mary gave birth to Jesus. Now, what else did Mary do? Well, Mary fled to Egypt with Joseph, but we didn't hear that story. And Jesus' first miracle was the wedding at Cana where he turned water to wine. But in the Baptist church, we never heard that story because the Baptists don't drink alcohol. So we didn't hear about his first miracle. So she tells me this, and I just kind of tune her out. Like, how do they all find me? There has to be a sign above my head that says crazy, come here, and an arrow pointing down to me. And only crazy people can see it because all of them find me. And I start thinking about, you know, she has the gold. I have her money. She made my day financially. Why is she still talking to me? So I tune her back in. And she says again that it's very powerful. And I'm like, no. No, she's insulting me. Somehow she knows I'm the high wizard. That there's between 2 and 5 in the world, but that number could be as low as 1 or as high as 10, which means at some point I was the only one high wizard out of 7 billion people. And she's trying to tell me that this blessed miraculous medal is powerful. No. I'll take it in my hand. I'll feel it. I'll know there's no power to this. There's no mystique to this. This can't do anything to me. I am more powerful than whatever this is. And I'm going to tell her that. And if she gets insulted and wants her money back, I'll give her her money back. And if she wants the regional manager's phone number to call and complain about me, I'll do that. Because I make my days, my weeks, my months, my quarters, and my year. My boss is never going to believe that I was rude to somebody on purpose. She's going to think she didn't like your tie. She didn't like your haircut. Your perfume, your cologne didn't smell right to her. Some problem like that. You were never rude to anybody. I know that. So I stick my hand out, and she sticks at my hand. Now my plan is I'm going to toss it on the floor. I'm going to slam it on the counter. I'm going to tell her it's worthless. This has no power to it. This can't do anything. I am more powerful than this. She drops it in my hand. She's giddy as a schoolgirl. She's so happy because I'm taking it. I stick my hand out. I clench my fist around it. All ready to tell her these things, except when I clench my fist around it, my store and my mall completely disappeared. I'm standing in this darkened void. I can't see this woman. Her name is Marianne Wickman. I can't see her, but I can hear her voice. And she tells me about the magic spell I did last night. And that's of the devil. And I've split over 100 churches. And that's of the devil. And I've done over 100 abortions. And that's of the devil. And she does about 8 or 9 other sins. And she ends all of them with, and that's of the devil. And now I'm terrified of this woman. I can't attack her with magic. And she'll destroy me. You know, I don't know. You know, her magic is stronger than mine. You okay? Okay. Her magic is stronger than mine. And I may have been the only one-eye wizard out of 7 billion people, but I couldn't give somebody a worthless gold-colored piece of tin, transport both of us to a darkened void, and know all their sins. Her magic is outdoing my magic. So I'm thinking about, how about if I just let go of this? Then what happens to me? What happens if I fall through the darkened void and don't find my way back to the mall? I don't know what to do. I'm sweating. And then she says again, the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army. And instantly, like a grace from God, I knew that the Blessed Mother was the Mother of God, which is a very strange revelation for a former Baptist to have. We'd rather shoot ourselves in the face with a shotgun than the Mother of God. So whenever I knew it was the Mother of God, Mary appeared to me. She's the prettiest woman I've ever seen. And she smiled at me. And it's a smile I knew I did not deserve. I was acutely aware of my 146 assisted abortions. And she takes me by the hand and turns me around. Divine Mercy Jesus is standing behind me. I wasn't Catholic. I didn't know what Divine Mercy was. I've got these rays of light shooting over me and around me and under me and through me. And in that instant, I knew I did not sell my soul to the devil when I was 13. I knew that Jesus Christ was my Lord and Savior. I knew all my Satanism, my New Age, my magic, and my occultism was false. And I knew everything Catholic was truth. And the Blessed Mother told me that my job was to help her end abortion. And I opened my hand and I was back in my store, back in my mall. This woman's still talking to me. She tells me where she goes to Mass. And she tells me that she's Father Joseph Whalen's personal assistant and that he's the busiest priest she's ever met. And that he's so busy, he doesn't even have time to talk to her. And she's the personal assistant. While she's talking to me, her phone rings. And she looks down. She goes, "Oh, this is Father Joe. I've got to take it." Well, yeah, you just explained all that. Go ahead. So Father Joe was starting to go deaf at that time. So he talked like everybody was going deaf. And so when she answers the phone, I can hear what he says. He says, "Hello, Father Joe. What can I help you with?" "Can you hand the phone to the young man you're talking to?" She's like, "Sure." So she hands me the phone. Now I'm shaking like Ozzy Osbourne. I'm like, "Hello? Welcome to the faith. Hand the phone back to Marianne." So I hand the phone back to her and he hangs up on her. Her daughter comes up to the counter. She said, "Would you go out to the truck and bring this man one of each of everything?" So her daughter runs out. Then I get two more phone calls like the first one. And then the daughter comes in with a paper grocery bag. It's got pamphlets in it. Why do Catholics believe this or do that? A Catholic Bible and about 125 Lighthouse Catholic media discs. And when I got home that day, my ex-wife at the time was my new wife. She had been Jehovah's Witness. I walked in the door. She's doing the dishes, and I said, "Hey, honey, guess what? I'm Catholic now." And she was
I bet she fell down.
Oh my God! If she'd have had a sharp object in her hand, she'd have probably stabbed me. She was like, "Of all the things you could possibly be, why would you be Catholic?" But I started going to daily Mass the next day, and she went with me. And at the consecration, I was like, "Do you see that?" She's like, "What?" And I said, that man up there on the stage." She goes, "That's the priest." I said, "No, the other guy." She goes, I don't see another guy." I went, "You don't see it because you're not Catholic." See, I thought everybody in that room was seeing the same thing. I thought everybody could see Jesus up on the stage. That if you were Catholic, you saw Jesus. She's not Catholic, so she's not seeing Jesus. And then I found out there was this place called Perpetual Adoration where you could go see Jesus anytime you wanted. And I was like, "Is there a line for that? Is there a sign-up sheet? Do I have to sign up? And then like 2 or 3 years from now, they'll call me and tell me it's now my time. Your block of time is from 7 to 11 from on Thursday night. And if you miss your opportunity, there won't be another chance for 5 more years. And they're like, no, you just go. Which is unfathomable to me because there's a line to get in to see Elvis, and he's been dead over 40 years. So there has to be a line to get in to see God. We show up. Shock number 1, we're the only other car in the parking lot. Shock number 2, there's no line to get in. And shock number 3, we open the chapel door. It's me, my wife, Jesus, and this woman. This woman looks at us like a deer in the headlights. And then she packs her stuff as fast as she can go. Like if this was an Olympic event, she got going. And she said, you can't leave till someone else comes in. And bam, she's out the door.
Oh, is that a thing? You can't leave?
Yeah, you can't leave till
Okay.
someone else comes in. They usually have a sign-up sheet and there's a list of people.
Oh, okay.
Go up. But most likely what happened is her person that come in next on her shift didn't show up.
Oh no.
So she's trapped now. And you can't leave Jesus alone. So if you're not supposed to, it's disrespectful. So she stayed in there. You know, she left, and I thought, why would I leave? I'm in a room with God. And that became my regular hangout. I'd be there anywhere from a half an hour to 18 hours a day. Thinking this is the best place in the world. You know, as I've done a lot of sins, and a lot of healing took place here. You know, it was a wonderful place to be. And then I officially came into the church in May of 2008. And I started this ministry, All Saints Ministry, in October 2010. You know, I had 2 years ago, I was I'd gone to St. Augustine with my niece and nephew for a vacation. When I landed in the plane, the woman that was picking me up said, great news. I've got you two talks in 2 churches, 2 talks in 2 pro-life centers, and 2 book signings at a Catholic bookstore. Thought I was here for a vacation, but okay.
Yeah, nope.
Yeah, now we'll do this too. So we were there for this working vacation. And this woman came up to me at the book signing. This was at the second book signing. And she said, I've listened to your story multiple times, and I can't figure out why you chose Catholicism. I was like, really? Well, that's a Scooby-Doo mystery, isn't it? Let's go over the details and let's see if we can both figure it out together. She's like, okay. I said, all right. So I said, so I'm working in the mall, and this woman comes up to me and she hands me a blessed miraculous medal, a devotion only held in the Catholic Church. She tells me that the Blessed Mother is calling me into her army, a title given by the Catholic Church. It's from the Bible. She tells me it's very powerful, and obviously it's only in the Catholic Church. I realized at some point that I didn't sell my soul to the devil and all the stuff I didn't realize, but I also realized that the Blessed Mother was the Mother of God, a title that's also from the Bible, and that everything Catholic is truth. Seems like if I have all that going on and I don't choose the Catholic Church, I'm the biggest idiot in the room.
And that's not what you want to be twice, because we already did that in the bathroom once.
Right. You know, and she was like, oh, you know, when you put it like that, that makes sense. I was like, so my question to you is, why are you not Catholic? And she literally said, I'm going to have to go home and rethink my life.
Wow.
I gave her my
That's-
business card.
That's like, you were so blessed. I mean, that lady. So did you keep in touch with the lady that gave you the medal?
Yeah. I actually have another story about that medal. The last time I saw her I was the speaker at the National Shrine of Divine Mercy on Divine Mercy Sunday in 2016. It was the Jubilee Year of Mercy. But the year, let me see, around 2012, I was given the medal in 2008. In 2012, I was getting a massage in Lehigh Acres, Florida, where I used to live. And I had mentioned that I don't want any chakra balancing. I don't want any of this new age, no
Woo
Reiki.
woo.
Yeah, none of the magic, just give me a massage. So she has me take off all my necklaces. And I've got a bunch of medals that I wear. And I took everything off except my scapular. I kept that on. And she had me put everything on a shelf on the wall. So I did that. When I got ready to leave, I'm putting everything back on. My necklace that had the Miraculous Medal on it wasn't open. It was clasped shut when I put it there. But now the medal's not on it. And in the medal didn't come with a little clasp. It was there's a hole on the medal, and that's where the necklace went through. There's no way it could have come off the necklace, but it did. And we looked for it, couldn't find it. And she's like, I'm embarrassed. I don't know where it is. And I said, well, maybe Mary wants you to have it. So I go home, and she calls me a few days later, and she said, let me tell you what happened. She goes, I tore my room apart looking for your medal, and I couldn't find it. And I searched everywhere, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I grew up non-denominational and New Age, and I prayed to Mary. I said, I've never prayed to you, but this man seemed very nice, and that medal seemed very important. So I would love to find his medal and give it back to him. And so Mary directed her to the carpet against the wall. And she pulled that back and found my medal.
Wow.
So she called me and said that it was there waiting for me. So I went to her place, and she gave it to me. She was so happy she found it. She gave me a hug. And I said, I think that Mary wants you to have it. She came to you. She helped you find something. You never prayed to her before. So this medal's for you. So I gave her the medal. She asked me, I told her about perpetual adoration and where it was. And she started going there before and after before she went to work and after she got off work. And then she ended up joining the church, going through RCIA, and then becoming Catholic. And she wears the Miraculous Medal. So in 2015, I spoke at this event called the NACOM. It's the North American Conference on Divine Mercy. And I showed up with about 500 medals. I have a benefactor that buys medals for the ministry, and I give them away on my merchandise table. Also, when people order things from me, I always put a couple of Miraculous medals in the packaging. And they're nice medals that come from Italy. It has stamped on it, made in Italy. And it's a nice quality medal. It's not like the really cheap one that I was given. You wouldn't want to take this and throw it in the trash. The one that I was given, like you could easily just crumple it up and
Right.
It was like thin. It was like a piece of aluminum. So I get nicer metals, and this woman came up, and she was looking at the rosaries. And my ex-wife used to make those. They were made with, some of them with semi-precious stones, some of them with precious stones, and they were expensive. She didn't charge for her labor; she just charged for the materials. And this woman came up and burst into tears, like she would love to have one of these, but she can't afford it. And this priest was so moved by her her just burning desire to pray a rosary, but she couldn't afford it. He bought one for her. And she cried and hugged both of us and said how much this meant for her. And she left. And at that time, we had this huge bowl, 500 medals. She returned later in the day. I guess she went to a bunch of the conferences. She eventually came up to me and she brought her daughter. And her daughter's like 10 years old. And she said that she heard that I had blessed miraculous medals there. And I looked down and I said, it looks like we're out of them. And her face fell and she looked like she was going to cry. And I asked my wife if I still had more medals. And she looked them up and no, we didn't. We're completely out. We had 500 and we gave all of them away. And so she said, that's okay. It just wasn't meant to be today. I'll have another chance to get one. She's like, I'm only 10.
Right.
I'll live a few more years. I can still get a medal. And I was wearing a medal that was a gift from somebody. It was sterling silver. It was about this big around.
Oh, wow.
Really thick, really heavy, on a heavy steel chain. And I took it off. And I said, I think Mary wants you to have this. And I put it around her neck. And she started crying and gave me a big hug and thanked me for that. And
So that was wonderful. You were able to do to somebody else on a way better level. Better than aluminum.
Right. And so they leave. And then I was in 2015. Around 2021, I think, or 22, the mother called me. Said, I don't know if you remember me. I was at the NACOM and a priest bought me a rosary. I said, hi, how's that going? She goes, this is my favorite rosary of all time. She goes, I pray this multiple times a day. She goes, and I always offer up a prayer for you and for the Father, because I have this because of him. And, and she says, I wanted you to know that my daughter is discerning right now which convent to join.
Oh, wow.
And she credits your generosity with giving her the medal. That changed her life. And that she hopes that she can become a nun and become as giving as you were. And possibly help people like you helped her.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that you were able to just go in the moment. So many people don't. Even the lady that came to you, sometimes it's intimidating to approach people. Especially you, because at that time you probably had a certain feeling about you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you probably didn't really want her all up in your grill. Like, come on, you're probably like, come on, lady, that's enough of that. But she still did it, and it changed your whole life, just like it changed her whole life.
She said that, this is Marianne Wickman. she told me that she used to be terrified of walking up to people and giving them a miraculous medal. And I said, but it's the easiest way in the world to evangelize. Walk up to somebody, hand them a medal, and walk away. Mary will do the rest. You know, in the Bible, she tells them at the wedding of Cana, she directed them to her son and said, do whatever he tells you.
Right.
She
That's
always
so,
gives
it's
to her son. She doesn't take credit for herself.
right.
You know, she's not, it's all about me. No, it's all about
No.
my son. So, you know, she said that she had been terrified. And I said, you know, if somebody killed you while you're doing this, you die a martyr. You know, and she's like, yeah, but I didn't have that strong of faith. I just thought, you know, what if they beat me up? What if they blacken my eyes? What if they stab me? You know, she said, I didn't want to do anything. She was, and then there was this other little girl that she fell into a swimming pool and she drowned, but she was revived. But she was a vegetable after that.
Mm-hmm.
And they put her in the house, and Catholics started coming there, like thousands of them, because miracles would happen in this little girl's presence. Like people that couldn't walk could suddenly walk. Blind men could see. People that were diabetic stopped being diabetic. People that had severe arthritis no longer had it. It was just one miracle after another. She had statues that were weeping oil. You know, if you'd examine the statue, there's no place for the oil to be. There's no place to refill it. You know, there's not a receptacle somewhere. Yet it's weeping oil. A priest took it to his church and put it in his office. And he started using containers to fill. And he kept it there for 30 days. It ended up filling like 4 1-gallon jugs of oil.
Wow.
He said, the statue doesn't hold a gallon. If you could see the statue, you know, it's a foot tall. It couldn't hold a gallon of oil. And yet it's weeping. It wept in 1 month, it wept 4 gallons of oil. So it's in my office. There's no way anybody can get to it. So, you know, he says that this is like a miracle. And she said she visited the little girl. The little girl is catatonic. She's not aware of anything. I think her name was Audrey Santos. And she allows, the parents would allow thousands of people to show up. Nobody ever did anything nefarious. They had cameras on her, but they didn't tell people that there were cameras. Nobody ever did anything nefarious. They touched her with their rosaries, or they prayed with her, or over her, but they didn't mess with her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and she realized this girl is at the mercy of God. And all the thousands of people are meeting this girl, and none of them are harming her. I need to be willing to do that.
Wow.
So she started listening when the Holy Spirit said, give them a medal. She would just walk up to them, give them a medal. Sometimes just give them a medal and walk away. I used to give people medals and I'd say, call your mother.
I wish somebody would do that with my daughter. It's been, yeah, long.
So she came up to me that day and she said, you've got dreadlocks. You're like 6'3". You got facial hair. Here's your dress nice. And you're clearly the manager, but you look kind of rough. Yeah, but you were nice. And the Holy Spirit said to give it to you. So I did.
That's great that she wasn't afraid in that moment because your whole life changed.
Right.
I mean, one little thing, you never know, right?
Right. You never know. Sometimes it's the smallest, simplest little act that changes your whole life.
Yeah. Or somebody else's. And I always think that you have to do it in that moment. Like people will sometimes say, like, oh, I saw this guy at the store and I felt bad. I'm going to pray for him tonight. I'm like, just pray for him right now. why? Why would you wait? Maybe
Yeah,
you're
why
going to
would you wait?
forget. Yeah. I think people have lost a lot of that. People are really in their own box, especially after 2020, man. Everything changed after that because people even quit smiling. It was like, don't get near me. You know. And I think that might have been part of the agenda with that, but it's a sad situation.
Then we learned a new phrase. That phrase doesn't make any sense to me. Social distancing.
Yeah, there's nothing social about distancing.
Right.
It's so funny. Being an ex-member of the OTO, did you find it a little humorous that they had us stand 6 feet apart? I did. Caught that. Because
Yeah.
there's no clinical, they've come out and said, oh, there was no clinical reasoning for that. But yet we were in masks and 6 feet apart. That sounds pretty familiar to me.
Yes, doesn't it? Old
I
from
think
English
that they
grammar.
do things. How much of our government and all that do you feel like it has infiltrated? Like these things, Satanism and like just corruption in
Well,
general, or the devil, not corruption from
Satan,
just money.
Satan likes to hide in plain sight. So if you look at our head of the monkeypox department,
Love it. I love it.
he's a gay Satanist, and he
Yeah.
owns a gym for gay Satanists. It's like, how many of those could there be? You own a full gym for those people?
Oh, that's
Well, I
so
would think
funny.
there'd be like one, and
Right.
no, apparently there's enough to open a gym for them.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's crazy to me. And then that our president's supposed to be Catholic, but is he proving it? No.
I don't even know if that's the same person anymore. I look at pictures and I'm like, but yeah, I don't think any of them. I think people get really funny about politics where they're looking to right the ex-president too. Save us, save us. Like, why did Jesus even get executed? Because they were too busy wanting a king, searching for a king, looking for a king, demanding a king to see the king right in front of them.
Right.
Right. It's all two sides of the same coin. I always tell people, let Caesar have what Caesar's. Stay out of it. It's not a good place.
When
It's bad.
when Passion of the Christ came out, the Jews protested it because it made them look bad. I was like, no, no, no. How you acted made you look bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you're complaining that it's in a movie. Read the Bible. It's in there
Right.
too.
What are you supposed to do about history? Like, I mean, it is what it is, or it was what it was, right? It's unchangeable on that part. Like, it, it just
Well,
is that.
eventually, in the future, depends on who's writing the history book.
Oh, that's for sure. That is for sure.
Eventually, the Jews might be the good guys in the Bible.
That could be true. They tell you to memorize your scriptures. I have one that I swear was Mandela on us. I always remember as a kid that the lion and the lamb would lay together. I remember this from being a kid. And I read not only my Mormon stuff, but some door-to-door salesman was selling these multi-kids Bibles. I think they were Jehovah's Witness, to be honest.
I think they were.
And
My parents bought those.
I loved them and I read them all and I remember all these stories and I'm like, And I do not ever remember it being a wolf, but now it is.
I don't remember
It
that
is
either.
now. Yep. And I went to my oldest Bible in my house, which is not even a Mormon Bible. And it's a big 1930s Bible. And I'll be darned if it doesn't say the wolf now. And I'm like, really? Yeah, it's they do things and they have the power, of anybody to manipulate time and space. Like that's
Well,
real.
like the Mandela effect really,
That's what it. Yep. Yep.
there's so many things that fall into that. I mean, like mirror, mirror on the wall
Yes.
is now
I remember it that way.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. And the thing is they're just messing with little things, but then it makes you wonder how much. That's why they tell us to try and memorize the Bible, because then they can't take it, if it's here. Why? That's why I think, this is just my conjecture, they were so heavily to kill the Native Americans because they had their history here. It wasn't in a book that they could burn. It was in their mind. And they knew the true history of this country. And I don't think that we have the full history of this country. Not even close.
I also don't think we'll ever know it.
No, definitely not. But there's too many weird little idiosyncrasies like the orphan trains. And people are like, oh, yeah, well, people died. I'm like, 250,000 kids?
There was,
That's a lot of kids.
I had moved to Burlington, Vermont, and they have all kind of touristy stuff there in the summer. And I took this this boat tour, and it's a big glass bottom boat, and they give you the history of something, and it's a lot of history. And in the stories was, what's the guy's, Benedict Arnold, a story about Benedict Arnold. The history books that I read in school, Benedict Arnold was caught and tried and executed as a traitor.
Yes.
Everybody that was on that tour remembers that. That's not what they teach you on the tour. They teach you that he defected to England, was given like a mansion, basically, fell in love and got married, lived to a ripe old age, had a bunch of kids, and died a hero in England because he had given so many secrets from the U.S.
I remember the traitor story. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird what they do and why they do it. I know that there's got to be more.
Everybody on that boat was talking about what they remember about history. And because there was a guy going, what do you remember about Benedict Arnold? I said, he was tried and found guilty and shot.
Wow.
And executed. But he wasn't executed right away. He spent some time in prison.
Right.
And
that's the same with Mandela. I remember Mandela dying in prison. I clearly remember that. Yeah. And nope, that's not what it is anymore. And that just shows you how important it is that we learn as much as we can. That's the one thing I think that people have really stagnated on. We have so much at our fingertips that people probably in the past only wish they could have. And people don't want to do that, and that's odd. I can't understand it, but I mean, it is what it is. It's such a strange phenomena.
Living in this time, everything is a strange phenomenon.
That's for sure.
And then,
that's for sure.
Well, to me, having seen so many things that are secretive and that the people don't know about, and then you see something play out and you know what this is, you know what it's from, and you're looking around. And I heard a term a few years ago that truly describes people. Sheeple.
Mm-hmm.
People are sheeple. They just put the blinders on and blindly go wherever they're told and don't question. And they just step off the cliff with everybody else. Whatever happens, happens.
True. It's so true. That's
Yeah.
such a definite.
And, it's when I see stuff happening, like I told a story I was on this guy, Patrick and Joy Campbell, it's a couple, and they were hosting an EWTN spiritual warfare conference. And so I did that on Zoom. And I did this talk. It would have been August of 2022, I think. And in that, he said, "Would you tell these people the Bill Gates story?" Sure. And this story happened in 1991. So it was at a Bilderberg meeting. Bill Gates shows up. He brings everybody adrenochrome, wants everybody to drink it. I refuse to drink it. At this meeting, we've been talking about having a pandemic, and we were calling it a plandemic. Something that would happen that would bring like a flu type virus, but we weren't sure if it was going to be airborne, in water, in food, what they were going to do. They were talking about wearing face masks and gloves and maybe even like a bodysuit, like a paper bodysuit, and something that they could talk everybody into doing that would be dehumanizing. It would take away your humanity, basically. And then that wasn't what was going to kill you. The people that would die from that are the people that would normally die from a flu. So like the elderly or infants. But no one else really is going to get seriously ill. But where they're going to get you is if they can get you to take the vaccine. And
Wow.
And that's where Bill Gates came in, where he was going to kill off millions of people if you could convince them to take the vaccine. And they were talking about making it mandatory that certain countries would have to take it. And by the time people realized that it's killing off so many people, it'd be too late because all the people had already taken it. So, and like I said, this is 1991. And I had said, and so he had me tell this story. And he tells the people in the audience. Now, I know it's easy to hear this story now and think, well, it's easy to make that story up because we've already had the quarantine and the lockdown and the vaccine. And obviously, he made the story up now. He said, but when I heard this story the first time, it was December 2017.
Wow.
Before anything had happened.
I think there was something even more nefarious with that. I know that the depopulation agenda, and if people would just look into Bill Gates' family, his father was a eugenicist. Like
Right.
his mom was high up in IBM. If you trace her back, she goes back to Germanic roots. Like there's a whole scandal there. I don't know why people are so quick to believe certain things. It's actually amazing to me.
I
His
think
critical thinking is out the door.
if you want to know if something is true or not, anything that the Democrats say is fake news is real.
That's so true. Anything any of them say, it makes you wonder, like,
I-
what exactly what were they doing to us? Yeah. That's a good part, though, for you to tell people where they can find you, like your podcast and your book and all these kind of things, because we want people to be able to find you.
All right. allsaintsministry.org is my website. On the main page of my website is a Spotify link, and you can find me on Spotify. I'm under All Saints Ministry, and I think there's more than one All Saints Ministry. So you have to look it up with a Miraculous Medal and see the one with the Miraculous Medal. We release one a day, Monday through Friday. And so I currently have, at the end of this month, I'll have 160 that have been posted.
Wow. That is a lot. That's amazing.
We started last June. So from June to December, I posted 140.
Wow.
And every month we post
I
20.
definitely will be checking that out. And then your book, where can they find your book? On your website as well?
You can find it on my website and also on Amazon. And it's also
Amazing.
ministry .org, and then that's abortion is a satanic sacrifice. And
Yes.
in that book, it tells you how to shut down an abortion mill through spiritual warfare. And we have,
Amazing.
since 2015, we've shut down 49 around the world.
That's awesome.
We're
Well,
pretty happy with it. The average
you're
abortion,
giving back. Yes, you're giving back all the things that you're
right?
making it whole. And that's amazing. I think that's, some of us have to go through some things and come out the other end and then repair. But
Right.
Jesus always picked all the, wild ones anyway. So
The
Uh,
the average abortion mill murders 1,500 babies a year.
mm,
So I'm stopping 1,500 times 49. That's 75,000 a year.
wow.
I feel
Yeah,
pretty good.
there's a better way, people. They're in this day and age, how about just prevention? How about just don't make a baby? If you're not ready for a baby, that's far better than making a baby and having to face that decision. That's just I know for myself I couldn't. I had a late pregnancy, I had a health scare during it. I was going through thyroid cancer. I had radiation. I was 37. They highly expected this baby not to be okay, and they weren't pressuring me. They just said she might not be okay because you found out and you don't have a thyroid and all these problems. And I named her Faith, and she is a blessing, and she is just fine. So
There was, I did a talk in New Zealand in 2016, and the guy that was speaking before me, his name was Cardinal Mafi. He's from Tonga, and he said when my life started, I was in the womb, and my mother was told that I had some disease that was probably going to kill me and might kill her, and she needed to get an abortion. So she said that her family doesn't believe in that. She's going to have to pray about it. So she told her company, I'm going to have to take 3 days off and go to adoration and pray for 72 hours. And her husband told his company the same thing. And they said, you guys are Catholic, we're Catholic. You go and do that. You pray there, we'll pray here. Your jobs are not in jeopardy. This is a life-changing decision. So do that. You take the 72 hours off. So the husband and wife decide they're going to fast and pray in adoration for 72 hours. And they did that. And when they were getting ready to leave, the mom drops to her knees and is sobbing and begs Jesus to let her son live. And she said, if my son is born with no defects and has nothing wrong with you, I promise you, he will become a priest. And then we're looking at, he's a cardinal now. And he said,
wow.
so as you can see, I did not stand a chance. I had to become this. He was discerning the priesthood at 14.
Wow.
He was the youngest ever bishop. He made bishop at 20 something. And then he made cardinal at the age of 50. which was the youngest cardinal ever.
Wow.
And yeah, he was, and everybody was like, and you're on the fast track to becoming the Pope. And he's like, I do not want to be Pope. He goes, that's why you should be the Pope.
Yeah, that might happen then. You don't want to say you don't want to do something. You're definitely going to have to do it then.
He said that the Pope is up past midnight and usually gets up at 4.
Oh, wow.
He said, that is not the job for me. I like my sleep way too much.
4 hours is not very kind. That's for
Right.
sure.
And then
Oh,
he told me that if he becomes the Pope, that the chief exorcist of Rome needs me. And
oh, wow.
so you will have an office at the Vatican, and that'll probably increase your sales. I was like, okay.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like they're already kind of consulting you on these things anyway. So from
Yeah,
your
you consulted quite a bit. It's a
so
nice
that's good.
feeling to be able to help. You
Yeah.
know, to go from being in an evil world to having the knowledge I have that can actually help somebody. That's a good feeling.
Right. I bet after everything, I bet that's like wonderful to feel like it's almost regenerative, you know?
You know, to be able to tell a priest, oh, the priest, the demon you're dealing with is named this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and have it be that's the name of the demon. You know, the demon
Yeah,
confirms that's his name.
that's amazing. Well, it sounds like you're doing God's work, and that is the utmost importance. And I know this story that you tell is not always an easy one, but I think it's so good that you tell it. I think that's amazing. So I appreciate your time today. I've loved our chat. I would
Me
definitely be
too.
down to do it again sometime. I'm a chatty gal. Sorry, I got us derailed.
There was a guy. There was a guy recently that sent me an email that told me this story about how he used to be an atheist, and he found my talk, and now he's Catholic.
Awesome.
And you know, it's like when you realize that they're basically a Satanist because you know Satan doesn't want you to worship him; he just wants you to not worship God. So if you're an
Right.
atheist, you know you're still going to end up in hell.
Yep.
And you know, it's like every one of these people that contacts me and says something like that, I'm like, God, take notice. I've heard you can get
Yes.
into heaven if you can bring a friend. So that's another one I'm bringing.
There you go. There you go. Well, I
Hey,
appreciate you so much, and I'm going to have to run, but I would love to do this again sometime if you would like. So
sure.
I'm down. All
Contact
right.
me again. Send me another email.
Sounds great to me. And I appreciate you once again. Everybody go check out Zachary King's work, check out his book, check out his website and his podcast, and give him some support and love. And we appreciate you for everything you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a wonderful, blessed day.
You too.